Good evening. Welcome to the June 15, 2023 Board of County Commissioners Comprehensive Plan Amendment Public Hearing. The board will consider the adoption of a future land use map amendment to the comprehensive plan and will also concurrently consider the proposed rezoning of the property that is the subject of the future land use map amendment. I'll now ask the Planning Commission to please introduce the first item.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Commissioners. As you said, we do have two items on the agenda tonight, and with that, I will introduce Ms. Jillian Massey, who will run us through HC CPA 22-17. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jillian Massey with your Planning Commission staff, and I'll be presenting on HC CPA 22-17, which is West Hillsborough Avenue and Racetrack Road. Some background on this amendment is that it's a privately initiated map amendment located on approximately 4.56 acres. It's in the urban service area and within the limits of the Northwest and Town and Country community plans. It's also located entirely in the coastal high hazard area. This is a general location map for the subject site. This plan amendment is part of the July 2022 cycle. It's located on the western side of unincorporated county, and it is on West Hillsborough Avenue and east of Racetrack Road. This is an aerial photo of the site, as you can see outlined here in red, on the north side of West Hillsborough Avenue. The subject site is currently vacant and classified as commercial land. Directly to the west is classified as heavy industrial. The subject site is mainly surrounded by other light commercial and light industrial uses to the north, east, and west on that same side of West Hillsborough Avenue, as well as some agricultural, mobile home parks, single-family residential, and some multifamily developments on the south side of West Hillsborough Avenue. This is the adopted future land use map for the subject site, which is currently designated as light industrial. There is one parcel directly to the west that is designated as regional mixed use 35. However, surrounding the site along the north side of West Hillsborough Avenue corridor is mainly designated as light industrial. Along West Hillsborough Avenue to the south is designated as office commercial 20. Further away from the site, both to the north and south, is designated as residential 4. The proposal before you is to change the subject site from light industrial to regional mixed use 35, which allows residential, regional scale retail, commercial, office, and business park uses, research, corporate park uses, and light industrial uses. And this is one of the most intensive categories in unincorporated Hillsborough County. This slide outlines the potential impacts of the changed land use designation. Currently, under the light industrial, there's no residential density allowed. So currently, there are 0 dwelling units permitted. And the change would allow for a potential 159 dwelling units or potential 35 dwelling units per acre. For non-residential potential density, currently 0.75 floor area ratio is permitted, allowing currently approximately 150,000 square feet of non-residential development. The change to regional mixed use 35 would allow a potential 2.0 floor area ratio, allowing approximately 400,000 square feet of non-residential development. So overall, the proposed amendment would increase the density and commercial intensity, and eliminating the light industrial designation would allow or eliminate processing and manufacturing uses. This request was sent out to various agencies for comment, and this slide shows 2 of the comments that were of note. Hillsborough County Hazard Mitigation noted that the proposed plan amendment has been found to be high risk based on the potential of 159 dwelling units in the coastal high hazard area. Also, the Office of Emergency Management noted that it would be adding unnecessary life safety hazards to an already high risk hazard zone. And the other agency comments we received can be located in your packet for review. The Planning Commission reviewed this request for consistency with the comprehensive plan and found it to be consistent with several goals, objectives, and policies. relating to neighborhood and community development. Policy 16.13, which says medium and high-density residential and mixed-use development is encouraged to be located along transit emphasis corridors. Housing element goal 2 states that it would like to promote and assist in the provision of ample housing supply within a broad range of types and price levels to meet current and projected housing needs so that all Hillsborough County residents have the opportunity to purchase or rent standard housing. In mobility section goal 5, policy 5.3.4 says consider existing and future development under adopted future land use element categories in projecting future multimodal transportation needs, as well as policy 5.3.5 in the mobility section that says evaluate the availability of multimodal transportation infrastructure when considering future land use map changes that increase density and intensity. And with that, the Planning Commission found that HCCPA 22-17 was consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Will the applicant please come forward? Each representative will be given 3 minutes. Good evening.
This one.
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners. Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South in St. Petersburg, Florida. The issue is light industrial to regional mixed use 35. Planning Commission Board voted 6-2 to be consistent. We've had 0 opposition. Future land use notice was at 500-foot radius. That included 37 persons and 2 HOAs. We've had no emails, no letters in opposition. As staff indicated, we're located at the far extreme west of Hillsborough County. Site is located here, as you see, with lots of shopping and restaurants directly or having direct contact, a lot of residential in the area as well. A little history: in 2016, the BOCC approved RMU 35 next door to tonight's site. That was approved by 6-0 by the Board of County Commissioners at that time. That was unanimous approval. So tonight's issue is seeking RMU 35, which is a wide range of uses from residential, mixed use, all the way to light industrial, just a wide gamut of uses. The current approved zoning uses underneath, which are approved already, is 179 hotel rooms and commercial office at 35,000 square feet. One point up front is that as an LI, tonight's site is too small for light industrial use. It's a smaller parcel and doesn't apply to LI. And again, as I showed you, there is significant shopping and restaurants, but there's also a very large residential component. Planning staff notes that the area is characterized mainly by commercial and light industrial uses. That's a distinction that we don't necessarily agree with, because you'll see there's existing residential in the immediate area that's very nice and is very successful. When you look at the future land use map, another point is you look at the site is surrounded by all gray, but when you look at the actual land uses that are existing, it's a wide area of light commercial and multifamily in the area. And when you look at zoning along the area, you'll see there's plenty of CG and the multifamily and again commercial. Planning staff report also tells you the site is in the coastal high hazard, but we have brought in J.R. Evans, who are floodplain managers and certified experts, who will talk with you. And the site is outside of the FEMA coastal high hazard. Before you is the mapping that shows you where the FEMA coastal high hazard is, and we are far outside that area, and they report to us there's plenty of shelter capacity. We're over 1 mile from Tampa Bay, 0.9 miles from the nearest coastal high hazard risk zone per FEMA. You have a comp plan that tells you to offer incentives for densities and intensities along transit emphasis local service corridors. Hillsborough carries 58,000 vehicles per day. The transit study wants to double the frequency. It's the second highest rider frequency in their report, and also includes a PSTA drop-off route and pickup for anyone, along with multimodal in Oldsmar. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
board members.
Anyone else on your team going to speak? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Fountain with J.R. Evans Engineering. I'm Vice President and Director of their Floodplain Management and Stormwater Design Department. I offer 24 years of experience in the world of civil engineering, water resource analysis, floodplain analysis, coastal modeling. And I'm here to talk about specifically the coastal high hazard area and the Florida Building Code and how it relates to buildings in the special flood hazard area. So the current Florida Building Code, has provisions in there to account for structures that are built in the special flood hazard area, and it requires that their minimum finished floors be elevated to at least 1 foot above that base flood elevation assigned to that flood hazard area. So all new structures need to be in compliant with that code, and I wanted to show some pre and post Ian photographs for structures that were not built to that current code and that were built, and the difference is pretty evidence that the new Florida Building Code is working. So here's a tale of two homes. This home is on the same side of the street of the next one I'm going to show you. They experienced the same hurricane forces. Obviously was built to lower standards than the more current Florida Building Code. And this home was right across the street and fared much better. This is a comparison of two homes side by side on Hickory Boulevard in Bonita Springs down in Southwest Florida. This is a pre-hurricane photograph from Google Earth, and here's our post-hurricane photograph. So you can see that one was completely demolished that was built in the 1990s, and the other one was recently built in 2017 and survived. Here's another one in Bonita Springs, again in the path of Hurricane Ian. Another example, a 2016 build survived and the 1994 build did not. I know we're here to talk about the coastal high hazard area, and there's a little bit of distinction that should be made between how FEMA defines it and how the slosh model defines a coastal high hazard area. The slosh model provides the worst case scenario for a hurricane event. It's not based on any one storm in the area. It's a modeling that models the storm surge inundation to the maximum level possible. It is used for evacuation zone management and creation by emergency managers. It's not used as criteria for the Florida Building Code or for development standards within the special flood hazard areas. And the modeled coastal high hazard area, FEMA, it does provide data, and it's based on actual historic storms that have passed through the actual area. So for Hillsborough County, you recently received new FEMA maps, and those maps are based on a new study that was developed in 2021.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the team? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Jim Von Rintel. I'm also with J.R. Evans Engineering. I'm a certified emergency manager in Florida and certified nationally as an emergency manager, as well as a nationally certified floodplain manager. I've been practicing in emergency management for 25 years in Florida, with 15 of those years as the emergency manager down in Collier County, Florida. So I looked at the risk with Elizabeth, and essentially it's a normal piece of property for coastal Florida with regard to risk. It is in a flood zone, as indicated, but the building codes and the elevations you require with your floodplain ordinance here in Hillsborough County more than make up for any of the coastal risk that this particular piece of property presents. I visited the site today to confirm what we did in the computer and in the office, and it confirmed my professional opinion that the risk to this type of development on this property is of normal risk for coastal Florida County.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak to this item? Okay, procedurally, the vote on the amendment should occur after the oral argument has been held on the PD. So this time I'll ask the clerk to swear in those that are going to speak to the PD.
Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may be seated.
All right, staff will introduce the item.
Good evening, Commissioners. Brian Grady, Hillsborough County Development Services. The rezoning application tonight is rezoning application 23-0150. The request is rezone an 8.1 acre parcel from 2 planned developments to a new planned development. It consists of 2 parcels, as discussed tonight. The western half of the parcel has an RMU 35 designation. The eastern half currently has a light industrial plan designation. But the application was reviewed under the assumption that the companion comprehensive plan amendment to change the eastern half to RMU 35, if that were approved, it was reviewed based on that assumption. The request is to allow for maximum 265 unit multifamily development project. Staff reviewed this and did recommend approval of this with conditions. The Planning Commission found it consistent with the comprehensive plan, and the hearing officer recommended approval. Staff's available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The applicant, please come forward. All right, you have a total of 10 minutes.
I wish I had this tech guy at my house.
Me too.
The PD. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. For the record, again, Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South in St. Petersburg. I'm going to flip through these so we're not repeating, so bear with me as we do this. We're very proud to bring this forward with the Planning Commission staff consistent. They cite 32 objectives, policies, and community plan policies. Planning Commission, 6-2, consistent. Development Services supports. We've had, again, 0 opposition. No one come forward for any opposition. We have this is a conceptual plan, of course. We have a PD plan, which lays out what the proposal is for apartments. You'll hear more about that. And this is the 2 approved prior plans, which are in the record, which I referred to during the future land use portion. Zoning staff, just to highlight, tells you that there's a Lowe's, a Publix, grocery store, restaurants, financial institutions, and that the applicant has proposed mitigation techniques to help achieve overall compatibility with surrounding uses. Staff also says they've not identified any compatibility issues relative to surrounding properties. Proposed uses located in an area of variety of uses, which includes industrial, commercial, and residential. Planning Commission report notes the development pattern and character of the area contain mostly light commercial, light industrial, and residential, and therefore the proposed residential use is compatible. They also note that it meets the intent of the Northwest Area and Town and Country community plans and provides housing within walking distance to daily activities, encouraging a mixed-use area. Again, this is the FEMA flood map, and you can see the site, which has the star. I do want to place emphasis on this, that your comp plan has a lot of policies about intensity and providing incentives for intensities along transit emphasis routes, which Hillsborough County is a main arterial between Hillsborough and Pinellas, of course. Their PSTA provides drop-off and pickup, and also reduced rides for Uber, Lyft, or taxi, because it's a very highly used corridor for them. The Northwest Plan, which covers this area, does note looking for compact mixed-use neighborhoods, which this provides, with economic vitality and mobility and connectivity, which we provided, and as we've shown you, it will. And under one little picture of that plan, you'll see it shows multifamily. So this is a live-work-play site. Planning Commission 2040 vision notes that proposed PDs that provide housing within walking distance to daily activities and encourages mixed use is what's desired. And when you pull back from the site, you begin to see that not only is it a good mixed use, but there's significant employment opportunity in the north part of Oldsmar with Nielsen, United Healthcare, Microlumen. They have a separate corporate park. There's recreational at Tampa Bay Downs. Downtown Oldsmar is the same as restaurants as well in regard to the site at the commercial node. There is a variation which everyone supports. It's regarding buffers. Again, the staff supports it. The zoning hearing master supports it. And by the way, the zoning hearing master also recommends support, which you'll hear from as well. The waiver request is supported by all entities. Again, it's a waiver request in terms of the height for certain parts of the building. And again, we've had zero opposition, no calls, no letters or emails after multiple noticing. So in summary, the area has transitioned, and we have to take, or we ask you to consider taking into account what the entitlements already are, which are there and have been approved, along with the Northwest Plan, along with what the staffs indicate to you, that meeting multiple policies and directives from the planning, from the comp plan and zoning. RMU 35 allows many uses, and there are extreme transit and zoning entitlements here. There's existing residential. OC 20 on the south side also allows residential. And as we've indicated, the Northwest Community Plan calls for this type of use specifically. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to another member of the team, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Good evening, Commissioners. 4350, or excuse me, Adam Teets with Johnson Development Associates, 4350 West Cypress Street, Suite 720. I am based here locally in Tampa, and I've been a proud Hillsborough resident for going on 12 years now. Johnson Development is a multifamily, or excuse me, is a family-owned and operated multifamily industrial and self-storage developer. Johnson Development has been developing for over 40 years and has been doing projects in Florida for over 20, Hillsborough County included. The first and most critical point I want to discuss tonight is the drastic need for housing in Hillsborough County. I think if there was one thing we could all agree on tonight, it's that it's needed in Hillsborough County. As you all know, Town and Country and the West Chase area is one of the fastest growing areas outside of South County. In 2021, Johnson Development had a market study commissioned by a third party, the Concord Group, to determine the need for housing in Town and Country and West Chase. There's a lot of numbers and data on this slide, so there's a couple items I just want to, conclusions that I want to point out. And those being that between 2010 and 2020, this area of Hillsborough County grew by 15.4% and is projected to grow another 7% by 2025. And this projection is likely on the light side if the migration trends to Hillsborough County continue as they have over the last several years. In order to provide adequate housing for the new population, the study also concluded that there needs to be an additional 378 multifamily units built annually between 21 and 25 to meet that demand based solely on the population growth. We're just shy of 1,550 units over that span. However, the last line of this chart shows that the amount of multifamily units delivered over the course of the last several years and projected into 2025 only total 151 units. That's a shortfall of approximately 1,400 units, and that doesn't include our proposal. The second item I want to highlight this evening is the $80 million investment that Johnson Development will be making in the community, which will have a significant and very positive and direct impact on locally owned businesses as well as large national retailers and spur further development in the area. And will be a better, more attractive site than there is today, which we can see here in the next few photos. And lastly, I quickly wanted to highlight a project that Johnson Development recently completed in Hillsborough County called the Trails at Hunters Lake, where we successfully partnered with Regency Shopping Centers and Hillsborough County in a public-private partnership adjacent to the new Tampa Performing Arts Center within the shopping center. And it is very similar to what we are proposing at this location. The trails at Hunters Lake, seen here in the background of the Performing Arts Center, is nearly identical in size, scope, and scale to what we're proposing at this site. The Trails project is a 4-story surface park community and has a density of 30 units an acre. Similarly, the proposed project will be a 4-story surface park apartment community with a density of only 32 units an acre, so very similar. It will be designed seamlessly to blend in with the larger development and provide pedestrian access to create walkability within and to the shopping center. Lastly, JDA's request is not speculative in nature. If granted the approvals this evening, JDA will close on the property in August, and we will begin construction as soon as we have obtained all permits that we need to construct this from the county. We think our project will serve as a catalyst for further development and reinvestment in the area and make this a win-win for both the county and for us. And with that, this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. And just to wrap up, I'll just note there's a minute 45, and I won't use it all. I'll give it back to you. But just to wrap up, clearly we brought this forward and aced the recommendations as been presented to you. We've worked very hard to make this a project that is conducive, and we think that's very apparent by the responses that you have heard and that we have received. So with that, we very much appreciate your time and appreciate your consideration. The experts are here to answer any questions you might have, and of course, we are happy to as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, thank you. Anyone here in support of the application? Anyone in opposition? Planning Commission?
Good evening. This is Jillian Massey again with your Planning Commission staff. The subject site is mainly surrounded by other light commercial and light industrial uses to the northeast and west on the north side of West Hillsborough Avenue, as well as some agricultural, mobile home parks, and single-family developments to the south. There are some multifamily residential developments in the area as well. The site's located in the urban service area within the limits of the northwest area and in town and country systems community plans, and it's also located entirely in the coastal high hazard area. The proposed 4-story building with 265 dwelling units in the regional mixed-use 35 future land use designation is compatible with the development in the area as it relates to height, mass, scale, and bulk of structures. The proposal is also consistent with policy 1.2 as it meets the minimum density expected for the acreage of this site. The proposal is consistent with policy 13.3 as it relates to environmental considerations, as the site is less than 25% wetlands. The Environmental Protection Commission Wetlands Division has reviewed the proposed site and has determined that a resubmittal of the site plan is not necessary. The proposed rezoning meets the intent of Objective 16 and associated policies relating to neighborhood community development. The proposal requests a variation to the buffer requirements and waiver to the setback requirements. However, based on the surrounding existing uses and site planning techniques used, all adverse impacts will be mitigated. The site plan also shows a courtyard and pool amenities for the residents, which is consistent with the policy 16.14 and the future land use element. In addition, the stormwater retention area as proposed within the development serves as a buffer and protects the environmentally sensitive land on the site. The proposed rezoning meets the intent of the Northwest area and town and country community plans. The proposed plan development provides housing within walking distance to daily activities and encourages a mixed-use type of environment. And based on these considerations, Planning Commission staff has found that the proposed plan development is consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to conditions proposed by the Development Services Department. Thank you.
Thank you. Zoning Hearing Master?
The zoning hearing master considered the applicant's request to rezone the subject property from PD 08-425 and PD 03-672 to a new planned development to accommodate a residential multifamily development of up to 265 units. The applicant has requested a comprehensive plan amendment 2217, to amend the future land use designation of the property from LI to RMU 35 for the east portion of the property, which is zone PD 03-672. The applicant has also requested a PD modification in PRS 23-374 to remove part of the subject property from the existing PD 08-425. The applicant is requesting a PD variation to LDC Part 6.06.00 landscaping and buffering, which requires a 20-foot wide buffer with type B screening along the subject property's west and northwest boundaries and a 30-foot wide buffer with type C screening along the property boundaries adjacent to light industrial uses. The applicant is requesting a 10-foot buffer and type B screening through this variation. The applicant is requesting a waiver of LDC section 6.0601, note 8, which requires an additional 2-foot building setback for each additional 1 foot of building height over 20 feet. The applicant is proposing a maximum height of 80 feet. The applicant's justification states the majority of the proposed building will meet the required setback. There are areas where the required setback is not feasible due to the subject property shape and other site design requirements. Development Services staff has found this waiver request, as well as the PD variation request, supportable. The zoning hearing master concluded that based upon the findings of facts and conclusions of law in the report, the recommendation was for approval of the plan development rezoning, subject to the approval of CPA 2217.
All right, thank you. I want to remind the board that 2 motions are required this evening. The first one's on the comprehensive plan amendment. With that, Commissioner Owen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gormley, on the, the coastal high hazard situation is obviously something that this board needs to look at and consider. But listening to the applicant and just doing some of my own research, so FEMA basically just takes into consideration if you're in one of those velocity zones, correct? But we also have an added component depending on where you're located as far as an evacuation zone. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I find this one really interesting, board members, because, I look around and I see, industrial, residential, light commercial, I see public transportation, I see compatibility. And I try to be consistent with everything that I say up here. And I look at, and Commissioner Kemp, I know you and I have spoken about having that harmony and that flow as you get close to the urban service area line. But I look at this urban service area line, and it's so much different than mine. Mine has squash, strawberries, and cattle. And this over here, it's different. There's industrial, light industrial, so there's a lot of mixed use. I'm obviously going to sit back and listen. This is not my district. I know, Commissioner Cohen, this is your district, so I'm very interested in what you have to say about it. But I do see a lot of compatibility with this, but I'm just going to sit back and listen. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Wolstel.
Thank you, Chair. And Commissioner Cohen, give me some grace here. This might be your district, but these are my stomping grounds, and I've traveled this area every day, twice a day for the last 15 years. I don't like these. I don't like these combined deals. I don't like that all of the details that we heard today. There were a lot of insinuations, and a lot of them are based off of the fact there is an RMU 35 adjacent to it. But the fact of the matter is that board in 2016 got all of the intricate details and reasonings to allow that rezoning at that time for whatever was happening. And now, 8 years later almost, the simple fact that it exists there is arbitrarily used, in my opinion, as a justification to expand that past entitlement that didn't exist before and wasn't a reflection in the future land use map. Specifically, comprehensive plan, heavy on the word plan. This doesn't feel like planning. It feels like this is an evolutionary cycle of things that have happened in the past, and now we're left with the remnants of it, and now we get to decide whether or not we're going to add even more entitlements that are perceived as they're already there, but we don't know what was going on then for that last justification. We don't get the privilege of hearing what those reasons were. I do understand the need for promoting intensity and density, but this is the most heavy impact rezoning that we have of an RMU 35 that has a variety of uses where you don't see any of them anywhere around. I heard during the speakers that the area has changed. not in the last 15 years, and I've built 4 houses in that specific area. So I don't understand what has changed in the area that might justify such a ramp up in impact into the area. I don't feel like the fly-by-night planning is what really plans. I'm curious, Mr. Gormley, why do we have a higher stress test for the flood mapping that they talked about compared to FEMA?
I believe, Commissioner, the reasoning for that is that that area, that initial evacuation zone is amongst the higher vulnerability areas. So added protection was given to the impacts on residential development or intensification in that area based on the fact that it would be the first area to evacuate.
Okay. There's a lot of variables that go into this for me, but largely for the safety concerns and, again, the kind of fly-by-night planning, which is not planning. This does not feel like a plan to me to approve this amendment. I will be voting no on the CPA amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp?
Thank you. This, I think, is complex in that the two are combined, and people aren't used to that or, understand that. We're hearing it all like together at once. So I first, Commissioner Wustall, I agree, and I see that I know that you do understand the distinction. The first decision we have to make here tonight is a legislative decision. It's totally a decision that we can make. Within our power to make that decision. That was made in 2016, where they actually, the underlying zoning there, as you heard, was 179 hotel rooms that have coincidentally never been built. This is a high hazard coastal area. It's a very dangerous area for flooding. It is at the tip of the bay. And when the water pushes up on that time, that area is extremely low-lying and very susceptible to very deep water moving in there over that area. And that is why, wisely, the planners designated, some of that building has been there, just legacy, but they wisely designated it as an industrial and light industrial area, which makes all the sense in the world to have those kinds of uses in that very, very vulnerable place. I'd like to just see the map that has the gray area that this is. I have 2 maps I want, but that was a map that you showed that just showed the land use with the gray designation that you can see, and then the purple of this.
Do you mean the future land use map? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Commissioner Kemp, is this the map you're referring to?
Yes, it is. It is. And so you can see that whole area is the light industrial to the north of Hillsborough Avenue. And it hasn't been broken open. If we make this decision tonight, this is what sets the table for the future, for all of this. This first decision that we make about whether we change the future land use designation on this area, and that will dictate in the future. You might say, oh, we could safely have this many residents here. This will be endlessly developed for this use. And I have to say, too, this is an infill type of use. There is plenty of land in this county for an infill project this size. This is not the kind of thing that we have trouble finding this area that's not in the high hazard coastal area for this type of development. And we will be making a decision that we can't turn back the clock on, where commissions before this and planners before this have wisely cited how delicate a place this is and what we should be doing. This is a very, very slippery slope. We open the floodgates if we do this first decision tonight. I'd like to pull up this was just flashed by us so fast, but it's particular, the future land decision here. We heard about the different recommendations. The Planning Commission staff, our planners that are experts, they did find this to be incompatible. Isn't that correct? The staff did. This future land use decision.
Yes, I can confirm that Planning Commission staff found this application inconsistent, but the Planning Commission, when they heard it, they found it consistent 6-2, I believe.
Right. Who aren't the professionals necessarily, they judge these things as consistent or inconsistent, but our staff, who I look to very much in terms of what their judgment is about this. But just to remind you all, in this packet, it says Zone AE is at a high risk of flooding under the National Insurance Flooding Program. The increase in single-family homes, and they were contemplating that before, within this portion of the county that is already constrained and within a hazard-prone area could have negative ramifications during future pre- and post-storm events, and may have a dire impact to the life, safety, and welfare of citizens within the county. That's the staff report. The Office of Emergency Management says, and they're saying with an increase of 159 homes, which is fewer than we're already hearing about, but with an increase of 159 residential homes within evacuation zone A at this place, the proposed amendment would add significant number of homes that will have a high risk of flooding under the National Flood Insurance Program. In addition, the influx of people evacuating will lead to a strain on the egress transportation and require extensive reevaluation of all shelter needs for this area, potentially requiring new shelters built to accommodate the capacities needed. The general increased vulnerability to storm events and disaster response for this area poses a threat to life safety. Changes in this area guarantee an increased need for evacuation, sheltering, and critical infrastructure maintenance. This location is primed for severe disaster impacts with a potential increase of 159 homes. Residents would be placed in a vulnerable location. Therefore, any increase in residential homes in this location will have a direct and negative impact on the safety and welfare of Hillsborough County citizens. And as I say tonight, this first decision would be step one. It could be populated after this. Anyone can point to this that we've done, and any other decisions we make to throw densities in there will be measured by its compatibility. So I will not be supporting this tonight, and I honestly feel like it would be irresponsible on my part to support this tonight, that I would be making a really bad decision for Hillsborough County residents and the future of the county.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Myers.
Thank you. Well, let me just come out the gate and say I'm going to support this project. I supported it last year when it came before us. And when we talk about the flooding in the area, Mr. Pressman, you said that during Hurricane Ian, there were no flooding on one of your slides. Is that correct? I mean, you're nodding, but I need to hear a yes or no.
Yes, the floodplain experts did research, and that is correct.
Okay. And then when we look within that area in walkable, we see the Publix, we see Lowe's, we see all the commercial development is already there. So if this was a flooding area, all this would already be flooded every time we have a hurricane, a storm, et cetera. And lastly, I want to say that all three, planning, zoning, and development, supports A1B. So therefore, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to move forward with A1B. Well, that's related. That's an item. Are we going to take the first one first?
The CPA.
And that's the CPA.
Okay, yes. That's
Okay.
my motion.
We have a motion to approve a CPA 2217. Commissioner Myers, do we have a second? If not, it dies for lack of a second. Commissioner Cohen?
Thank you very much. So this, Commissioner Myers mentioned it, this came before us in a slightly different form about a year ago, I think it was. And at that time, I did not support it. And it was mainly for the same reasons that Commissioner Kemp read from the emergency management language, which is as strong as language as I have seen by our staff related to a development proposal and the risks from flooding and other disaster impacts. What has puzzled me a little bit about this, however, is that there was this dispute among the experts about whether or not this actually is in the coastal high hazard area or not. And, you know, on the one hand, I guess my understanding after the back and forth over this is that technically it's outside the coastal high hazard for FEMA's purposes, but that for the state of Florida's calculations, it's inside the coastal high hazard area. You know, that's, all right, so I guess that puts it sort of on the cusp in terms of what the experts say about the danger. You know, I looked at the same map as Commissioner Kemp, and this disaster map of Hillsborough County, and you know, it's true that it's covered in red. The area that is flood evacuation zone A is covered in red. But I have to tell you, it includes the entire West Shore Business District, all of downtown, Channel Side, a huge portion of the South Tampa Peninsula, and literally all of Town and Country and everything around Hillsborough Avenue west of the Veterans Expressway. So, you know, on the one hand, I am, you know, weighing the staff's analysis, but on the other, I'm looking at the swath that is covered here, and you know, it's enormous. I mean, we're talking about almost my entire county commission district of District 1. So, you know, then you get into the individual characteristics of the site, and you know, it seems to me that if not for this issue of the concerns about flooding, this checks every box that we're looking for. It's housing that's desperately needed. It's on a major transit corridor. It's actually, unlike some of what we've seen on State Road 60 lately, it's not in an area that's being heavily contested by the residents, because it's not overly congested in the way that some of the other areas of the county are. It really does check a lot of boxes. So again, you come back to this flooding question. It's a mile away from the bay, and it seems to me that it's, you know, it really is right on the cusp of what it is that we ought to be concerned about. And so I guess that you know, what I'm weighing here, what I'm struggling with is how restrictive are we prepared to be in everything that's designated or that's even possibly part of the coastal high hazard area? Because what we see tonight is that there's not going to be any specific line that we can agree on. It's going to be zones, and it's going to be nuanced, and it's all going to be based on projections. You know, what is reasonable for us and what is not, given our our housing shortage and the conditions of our economy. And, you know, I wish I could be a little bit more definitive. I'm looking to hear what everybody else has to say, but based on Commissioner Meyer's motion, I can tell that other people obviously have concerns as well about the flooding issue. So.
I thank you. Commissioner Cameron Cepeda.
Yes, so as Ms. Massey said in the beginning about the same thing as the unnecessary life safety hazards, and then we also again heard from the engineer for the applicant said that it's normal risk, and then we heard again that about the evacuation route issue, and that you believe that would make things worse. So the same thing, thinking of the same, pretty much just yes. Just thinking of those issues, because we do want to think about the safety of the people on evacuation routes. Yes, so many different things really to think about here. Yes.
I thank you. Commissioner Owen.
Yeah, I guess I want to ask the gentleman that spoke. I don't really know what normal risk really necessarily means. When you're saying normal risk, I would like that clarified. I'm glad you brought that up, Commissioner. What exactly would normal risk mean? Your thing's not on.
Record.
Yeah, okay.
So when I think about normal risk, and I was an emergency manager down south of here for many years and been doing this for 25 years, we live in a coastal area that is prone to hurricanes, and the emergency management professionals study and plan for that. And so this particular piece of property is in an AE 12 and 13 flood zone. The reason it's there is because of storm surge potential. And the building codes, the evacuation routes, the shelters that have been put in place, the procedures your emergency management department have put in place, all account for that. Doesn't mean they won't have to evacuate. It just means that if they do, they have shelters available to go to. They have routes that have been planned and studied that will be able to handle the traffic. And that, you know, in a sense, it's normal for all of us that live in coastal Florida. It's not zero risk, but it's been planned for. The reason for the elevations that are required in the Florida building codes that are in place are to put it into that manageable risk area. It's not an exceptional risk area. It's what I would consider to be normal. If this was back in the day when I was asked to do assessments of this type of decision, I would highlight that it is in a flood zone, that under certain circumstances, it would have to be evacuated, but that it's planned for. The county has capacity, and the routes have been planned, and the people are aware they live in a hurricane-prone area, and it's not exceptional. So I consider that normal, and that's just from an emergency manager standpoint. It's your decision, obviously, but that it would not raise any particular alarm to me as an emergency manager. I recommended approval, many very similar pieces of land. The only thing I would prohibit or would lobby to not put there would be an assisted living facility, a nursing home, or a hospital.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. That's enough. Yeah, that's all I had. Thank you. I just wanted that clarification.
Commissioner Cameron Cepeda.
Yes, so one more quick question. It seems like I heard two different numbers. It's a 4-story, 265 apartment units, because I think I heard another number, but it's 265 apartments?
That's correct.
Not the, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kemp.
Thank you. I'll say because they had it throughout here for the single piece of property, 159, then they would combine it with the other one to increase that. And, you know, we heard from an emergency manager who is the applicant's person. Our own Office of Emergency Management, independently evaluating this, wrote what I read, which was the fact that in addition, the influx of people, and that was just with the smaller number, evacuating will lead to a strain on the egress transportation and require extensive reevaluation. of all shelter needs in the area, potentially requiring new shelters built to accommodate the capacities needed. The general increased vulnerability to storm events and disaster response for this area poses a threat to life safety. Changes in the area guarantee increased needs for evacuation, sheltering, and critical infrastructure maintenance. That's our own independent evaluation, and they know the area. They are here not just for a few hours, but they're evaluating it and letting us know this. I just think it's really important. I'll say too, in terms of just the transit information is not accurate information. It's a bus there every hour. It's not, you know, you can call anything walkable. It's not really what you think of. I mean, when you think of walkable, you think of walking to your friends' places, to different things, right, all in the area, because there's zero population there right now in that whole gray area. It's not a walkable place. People drive to the Publix or to the Lowe's once a week, however that goes. You know, it's not that kind of area, and it's not a transit well-served, like most of the edges of things aren't well-served. As I said, there's lots of places that could use infill that would be more appropriate than this if you're looking to do an infill project. And I think, by the way, this project, I know it's, we hear 4 stories, but I saw 80 feet in there as a description. I guess it has to be, I'm thinking not tall to accommodate the flooding, the anticipated. But I am very, very concerned about this project and all the projects that could be in this area. And I think it's wise. We have a county as big as the state of Rhode Island. Yes, we have coastlines. So does Rhode Island, actually. But and we have our wetlands to think about. But we have plenty of land. We have lots of land for infill and within the urban service area in places that makes sense. And I'd really like to see that development there, because that makes a lot more sense than moving in here and putting a lot of people at risk.
All right, board members, we need to take another crack at a motion. So what's the pleasure of the board?
I move for approval.
Okay, we've got a motion approved. Commissioner Myers, do we have a second? Okay, the motion dies for lack of a second. Can we have a motion to deny?
Move for denial.
Motion to deny by Commissioner Wolstel. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Cohen. If no further comments, please record your vote.
Motion carried 5-2. Chair Hagan and Commissioner Myers voted no.
Okay, so now we need to dispose of the PD. Can we have a motion to deny?
Motion to deny.
Motion to deny, Commissioner
Second.
Kemp. Second, Commissioner Wolstel. If no comments, please record your vote.
I can take your vote, Warren. Yes. Motion carried 7-0.
Okay.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Motion carried 6-1. Commissioner Cameron Cepeda voted no.
All right. With that, we're adjourned.